back to this final episode of the Seed Story podcast that we've been doing. Ted and Darlene are back here, and we're lucky to have another guest today. Basically, we're coming to the end of this history memoir that we've done, and so we're wanting to transition into the next phase at Seeds. And the reality is that Darlene and I aren't going to be a part of that in the same way that we've been a part of things for the last 25 years. So we wanted to make sure that there was some continuity in connecting with some of the leaders here at Seeds. And so we've invited Jonathan Toews to come on board. Jonathan has just accepted the role of being the leader of the lead team. And so it's good to have, I don't know if we didn't hand off anything to you, Jonathan, but in a sense, we've handed off that leadership. And we just wanted to get a bit of Jonathan's perspective about what the future of Seeds looks like. Jonathan, in the past, has been a teacher, a principal, an administrator at the division level in education, has been a part of Seeds for, when did you first come? Like over 20 years, correct?
2004, I believe.
Okay.
We were still meeting at Miller.
Then even earlier then, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so you've been there for most of the life of Seeds. So
that would have been before 2003 then, because we moved to the exchange in 2003.
Then I would have been, or my family and I would have been part of those, maybe as you were wrapping up your time at WC Miller.
Yeah.
Then we would have been there, and then I remember transitioning to Seeds for sure. I helped with some of the renovations.
So you've been with us for quite a long time, and don't worry about not remembering exactly because we have
gaps.
We've had lots of gaps in this process, and it's a long period of time. So I thought we'd start with maybe just reflect a little bit about your history at Seeds. Like, what kind of stands out for you? We've been going through all the phases from 2000 to today, and things that were significant from our perspective. Is there anything that kind of jumps out for you that is important?
Well, church was important for myself and my family. We had a vision for connecting with the community in Altona, and there's lots to choose from. Mm-hmm. We didn't initially come to Seeds, but when we came to Seeds, we made a connection pretty early on with Kurt and Candace Letkeman, and that just led from there, and our children became connected with some of the other children at Seeds, and we appreciated the relaxed approach to worship, the inclusive nature. We felt our children could very easily find a place at Seeds. It was children friendly. Our oldest didn't necessarily enjoy the quiet sitting environment of many churches, and so Seeds just felt like a really good fit for him in particular. And then from there, it just morphed into the 20-year journey that we've been on since then.
And you've been part of leadership for, I don't know the exact
maybe
number of years, but probably, definitely between 5 and 10, right?
It's more than 10 years.
Yeah?
You would have tapped me on the shoulder quite some time ago. At that time, Kerwin and Candace and Cal would have been part of the lead team, I believe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was a fairly small group.
Yeah.
Vision team, actually, it was called.
Yeah.
It was called Vision Team. And I've tried to step away, and it hasn't... It's just felt like the timing hasn't been quite right to step away. And when I was ready to step away, then we were quickly put into this transition journey. And it didn't feel like the timing was quite right. And then plus some encouragement from people that might be speaking into the mics.
Yeah.
They just had words of encouragement to help me reconsider.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, that we had at least a few times conversations where it was sort of like you weren't quite sure what kind of role you were playing in leadership. You didn't necessarily feel like there was clarity about that. And I think the last time we had that conversation, we just sort of said,
just hang on. If you can hang on for a minute.
Because we sense that the new reality of transition will actually create some clarity about how you could step in and give leadership. And so maybe we should talk a little bit about how reflect a little bit on how you ended up where you are in this role today, which is significant. But I mean, even just over the last year, there's been a few iterations of how you were involved. So maybe you want to say a little bit about how we got to this point. Maybe describe a bit how this transition has worked.
You're right, Ted, that there was a point in my connection to the lead team when there was a bit of reorganization where the structure of lead team, vision team was reorganized. And I was still connected to that group, but there wasn't complete clarity at that time about what that would look like or what that looked like. So then at that point, I just felt, maybe my time, I've done my time. I've served the purpose that I was called to serve at Seeds. And then I shared that with you. And as you said, then you encouraged me to rethink that, and which I did. And I was part of that visioning process. Well, it's about a year ago now, when we went through the path process. There was I think there was a divergence of opinions or sentiments about what the future could look like for Seeds. And I found myself in a bit of a place of tension and recognized that it would be good to bring the experience and knowledge I had from Seeds and from my other leadership roles to the current situation and offer what I could in the transition journey. I've been through transition journeys as a preacher's kid. I've been through transition journeys in my career, and I know they can be places of discomfort and can lead to not the best of outcomes. And I just really felt like it would be wise to be part of a process to lead us to the best outcome possible.
Yeah. Like whenever there's big changes afoot in any kind of environment, and I think having Darlene and I give founding leadership to a community for over 25 years, and then making that hard decision to say we think we need to step away does create some disorientation for everybody involved. I know Darlene and I felt disorientation just about our own role and our own future. And then a congregation who is used to a stability in leadership for a long time, it's kind of like, wow, can we even imagine? You don't imagine without the leadership you've had when you've had it for so long. Like if there's lots of turnover, then you kind of get primed for it. And so I think it was interesting that you saw this kind of opportunity to kind of step in and maybe give some stability to the process, not any particular vision or direction, but let's just calm the waters and have a careful process that allows the community to get to the other side. Let us go our way and then transition into the next thing. And so it seemed like that maybe even excited you to be a part of that type of thing. Is that like, do you feel like your experience kind of primes you for that type of role? Yeah,
well, one hopes that a lifetime of work and working leads to insights and wisdom. I'll use that word cautiously because I don't want to, project a sense of wisdom, but I really believe that work well done, and when you listen and work with people, you gain things along the way, and those are things that you can now bring to life in the context in which you find yourself. It's not the same as school leadership, but leadership, there's overlap with leadership skills. I don't know if excitement would necessarily capture what I was feeling. I was definitely feeling a sense of, initially a sense of urgency that we needed to make sure we set the tracks for this transition journey well. We needed a process that would honor people's sadness and grief, which is completely understandable after 25 years of stable and consistent leadership. We wanted to just let that space be available for people to name their grief and their sadness. But we also wanted to come alongside and reassure people change is normal, change is healthy. Change doesn't mean an undoing of the good things that you've experienced, and it also provides some opportunity. So what are the processes that we can bring to bear in this current situation to allow people's voice to be lifted up and to share the things that they're feeling anxious about, but also to articulate the things that are really important to them right now and what are important to them as they think about seeds in January 2025 and beyond.
Do you have kind of like just a blank response to if I ask, a highlight of this last year being in this transition place and maybe a low light? What's been hard? What's been good?
I just love working with a team. The leadership can be a bit of a lonely journey sometimes, and you have to make tough decisions as a leader. That's not what this role is, actually. This role is more about leveraging the goodness of the people that are committed to seeds. And so working with the transition team has been a highlight for me without a question. Ashley Weentz, Nick Kaler, and Kevin Nickel. It's kind of an unlikely quartet in a way, but we found our way and we found some synergy, and we found a good way to share our vision, to grapple with the questions that we think we have personally, but we think that others might be having as well. And I don't have a low light, honestly. I would say the process has been surprisingly positive and energizing.
So you've been doing a fair amount of processing with groups of people, giving people opportunity to talk about their experience of seeds and their dreams and kind of visions for the future. Kind of just thinking about, we've gone through this process of highlighting things of over a 25-year history. Things that seem significant to us or interesting or challenging or whatever. What's your sort of sense of what was sort of a through line in this history at Seeds that kind of poises the community to move into a future with a sort of a resource or an identity or something that it can kind of hang on to? What is it that has sort of struck you about through line? It's something that kind of has gone through it.
I would say that the culture of Seeds, in terms of the way that through your leadership, Seeds has embraced change and hasn't stayed static, hasn't said, this is the way we've done it, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it, and kind of get stuck in that sense of the way it is the way it must be. The fact that Seeds has gone through iterative processes, change processes, things have come and gone within the life cycle of Seeds. This feels like another part of that cycle of life within. It's not the same because it's fundamentally different, but the notion that people can embrace and move through change in a good way really provides Seeds with the stability to carry on. The other thing I would say is when I look at the generational leadership that's emerging at Seeds at the moment, we have a lot of committed members that are younger than I am. They're the generation that really needs to step up and lead Seeds beyond January 2025 and into the new leadership and structure, whatever that will be. That's exciting. We're in a good place, and you marry that with people who have the history of Seeds right from the beginning, and there's still quite a few core members, I suppose we could call them, that share the birth story of Seeds. You put those two, those two energies together, and I think it just makes for a fantastic formula for success. Yeah. And I'll say one more thing, or a couple more things. No, good. The through lines in terms of, so we went through two processes. One, we did a survey initially back in February, March, where we just wanted to allow people right off the bat to share, okay, this is what's important to me right now. This is what I'm worried about. This is what I think is important to me in the future. We did that, and then we had what we called roundtable conversations at the end of October. Not quite the same questions, but the questions would have overlapped. The through lines there were pretty clear, actually. The appreciation story for Seeds is linked to a couple of things. One is that Seeds has provided a welcoming place consistently for people who might not have felt as welcomed in other church contexts. And I want to be very gracious. I understand that other churches do what they do, but Seeds has had a unique role within the Altona context to support people who might have felt disenfranchised elsewhere or disconnected elsewhere. So there's a sense of safety, a sense of belonging. And that's not to say we've always done that perfectly either.
No.
Because some people will have come and they've said, you know what, this is my space either. And that's okay. The other thing is that Seeds is a place where wherever you're at in your faith journey, it's provided the space. We've used the word deconstruct to talk about that way of engaging your faith. People have felt the freedom to say, you know, I'm not sure anymore. This has been my church experience for so many years, and that's true for me as well. I mean, I'm a church kid. I grew up in the church. I'm a preacher's kid, pretty traditional Mennonite congregation, and I'm not disavowing that history, but I'm just saying I see things differently now than I once did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like along the way, you've shared openly too about how that has evolved for you in terms of faith and how you see things, and I'm just remembering certain experiences of you talking about what you used, like where you came from and where you're at now, and that has been part of your own story too. Is
part of my own story, and Seeds has created the space for that to happen, and that was very evident in the feedback we got from both the survey in spring and the roundtable conversations, that people have appreciated that open stance towards faith and faith journey. I mean, the through line also is, or the vision or mission of Seeds is to make Jesus real. That hasn't shifted, but I think the ways in which we've come to understand how that happens, maybe that's shifted. And the two of you can speak to that for yourselves too, but that's been my observation, and I think that came through in the surveys.
Yeah. Just to pick up on one thing that you said, I appreciate how the transition work has involved a multi-generational leadership group. And I think one of the challenges maybe, and we want to talk a bit about challenges and opportunities for the future that you maybe are seeing, but I'm thinking from my own perspective, one of the challenges that we've always been aware of is how does a church community transition from, 25 years is about a generation's kind of time. And so if you're going to go another 20 or 25 years as a community, it means it'll be a different generation of leadership that's going to be involved. And we've just always wondered and talked about over the years about like, how is that going to happen, and how can that be facilitated, and is that going to be possible? And it feels like has been happening. It's I'm encouraged by that there's the ability for someone who's a little bit older in leadership to be leading along with people that are younger, and not a feeling of like, well, you just need to be done, older person, let us take care of it, but it can be collaboratively done with an understanding that it's actually being passed on to the younger crew at the same time, and that they will start carrying it forward over the next decade. So I think that encourages me. That was something I think we always wondered about and hoped that we could facilitate. And I don't know if we had anything to do with it or not, but it's good to see that it's happening nonetheless.
Yeah, there's kind of there is a passing on to another generation, but also not in a way of just kind of washing your hands of, while we've done our time, wash our hands. Good luck, you guys. You said that well, Ted, when you say that. I think what we've observed in the transition team is a collaboration of age and experience and perspective, and that positions a community well when it's not just one group, either an older group or a younger group, but that it's a sense of we still need everybody.
Yeah, and what role have you two played in that transition? I would say first and foremost that you've let the transition team do the leading that needed to be done in the transition process. You didn't insert yourself in ways that might have kept us tied to sort of the vision that you carry. And that's not to say, like, we've been super sensitive to the fact that, I mean, you're still leading the church at this time. So your role is still key, and we need to keep, in that regard, we need to just keep the status quo. Like, nothing's changed really. But our work in the background, not even in the background, but along the sort of parallel to what the two of you have been doing, is to say, okay, we are in a transition journey, whether we like it or not. That's just our reality. Can we find ways to, and we've used this phrase, to sustain and flourish beyond the good work, the good foundation that has been put in place through the leadership and vision of Ted and Dar? The church has never been, in a sense, your church.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize and affirm, gosh, the church is continued to exist in the way it has because of your leadership and the leadership of people around you. But the church seeds community will be okay. And we don't know what the new leaders will look like, but the process will lead us to that.
Yeah.
I believe it, without a doubt.
It may even be better than okay. And it might be even better than it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. The process of better or worse, like, yeah, I know, like, it could be, but we've been in a transition journey in a way since you started, because the seeds that you started isn't the same seeds that you're leading or leaving.
Yeah, it kind of, I don't know, this just thought, it just reminds me of a comment that Esther Perel, who is a relationship psychologist, and she made this comment in an interview once. She said that, like, I've been in 4 marriages, and she said, all with the same person, but we have had 4 different marriages in our time being married together, and it does feel a little bit like Seeds has been different churches over the years. I don't know if we've ever kind of said how many different churches we've been, but when we've done this process of looking back, we are quite aware of how things are different than they were at the beginning, in the middle, and now at this transition point.
And that if we would have tried to, kind of like the marriage analogy that Esther uses, it's kind of like, yeah, if you don't have the ability to say that marriage was great, but it actually is not serving us anymore. So if we're going to continue, let's move into a different iteration of this relationship. So
I guess maybe one final question, that is, like, we've sort of maybe referred to a little bit. What do you see as being the challenges or the opportunities, or maybe they're both at the same time? What are you thinking about in the next year, 2, 3? What do you think are the big things that will be the focus, in your opinion?
Yeah. And I'll speak as if I'll speak for myself. I know others will have different opinions. To be honest, the surveys that we did, the roundtable conversations, and maybe we didn't ask the right questions. I mean, I can grant that for sure. I wouldn't say that there were great challenges that surfaced in terms of things that worried people or bogged them down and said, how is this going to work? Like, that just didn't come through in either the spring survey or the roundtable conversations. The biggest challenge is probably right now just the unknown. Like, we just don't know what we don't know. Mind you, we didn't, when we started the transition journey early on, we identified through the help of Karen Schellenberg that we needed an interim phase between your departure and the new pastoral team, whatever that looks like, comes on board. And so we were really keen to find an interim pastor. And quite honestly, it felt like we'd reached dead ends. Like, it was not going to go where we were going to go. And we were prepared to completely take it in-house, recognizing that the challenges of that would have been significant over time. But through God's leading and goodness, and we found an interim pastor, who we think will be a perfect fit for Seeds as we transition through till November or December of 2025. So that same sense of unknowing, I think, exists for me when we think about a more permanent leadership team. Don't know yet. We just don't know. The opportunity exists along with that unknown. The newness of somebody's vision and passion for leadership within a church community it might just freshen us up in ways that we couldn't anticipate, which I expect will be true. Like we just don't know what that will bring us. But my experience has told me that change often provides the opportunity for unexpected, surprisingly good outcome.
Yeah, like in many ways, the search for an interim leader was a major challenge kind of right from the beginning of the transition process. And at every turn when a pursuit did not end up in a resolution of that pursuit, or at least not a positive resolution, I mean, it kept feeling more like a challenge and a challenge. And then now at this point, it feels like, well, an opportunity has arisen out of all that challenge. Mm-hmm. And so it's, why couldn't it be the same that as you meet other challenges in the transition, that it will be the potential for new opportunities as you kind of see who may step up or come into play that you don't even know about yet.
The church, and I think this is a perspective that we've tried to bring as a transition team to Seeds and to our own contemplation of the change transition process, is that while Seeds is comprised of a whole bunch of people, and the people are significant to Seeds, and its immediate well-being and its future well-being, it's a divine enterprise. Like this isn't just a human business we're in. Like this is the work of a God, a heavenly Father, a divine presence that we can't always tell how it sustains us. But as a community of faith, we believe it does.
And in some ways, opportunities to lean into that even more in this past year, and I would imagine in the future too, that I think as long as things are kind of trucking along, there can be a bit more of a, I don't know what the word is, like when it's going well, you don't have to lean heavy on the divine. Mm-hmm, you know, you can almost think that it's going along well because people are doing good things.
We're doing a good job, and that's why it's working. But
then when challenges come your way, either personally, but also this goes for the church, that there's an opportunity to grow in faith, to grow in our understanding of the presence of the divine. And I feel like I've seen the transition team and the church as a whole lean into that, which is, it's not nothing. The church as a whole in the world is at such a precarious time, I think. And given all manner of deconstruction, it can sometimes feel like, what is there to hang on to, right? And so I think this year there's been opportunity to really to lean into the hope and faith that we are in something that's bigger than ourselves, all of us.
And that can be a foundation for building something or rebuilding something, or I think, thanks so much, Jonathan, for coming here. I know that I think personally for Darlene and I, as we were thinking about transitioning out of leadership, probably one of our fears or things that we wondered about was, how would a transition go? Like, would it go well or not? That would be one of our things that might have kept us up at night. And now being on this end of the transition, like we're just days away from stepping out. That's not something I think that we're really losing any sleep over these days, that we feel like the congregation's in very good hands leadership-wise, and the congregation's in a good place. And we look forward to finding out what the new phase looks like. And although we've committed to staying away for a period of time, and we'll negotiate that over time, can imagine a future where we find ourselves a part of this community in a different way. So that remains to be seen, but I hope that can happen, or something like that. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me share a little bit about, the role that I personally have taken in the transition journey. I just want to reiterate again that things like this happen with the collective. Mm-hmm. So when if to use sort of the language of the New Testament, when the body of Christ comes together, when the people to whom the Seeds community matters come together, it will sustain and flourish. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Great tagline.
Yeah,
I love that tagline.
Where 2 or 3 are gathered, it'll be sustained and flourishing. I know that's not quite the scripture verse, but I mean, clearly the community is being led by something. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long.
Well, Darlene, we're coming to the end of a lot of things, but
The end of the end.
clearly we were coming to the end of this 25-year story memoir podcast, but we are also days away from ending our leadership role at Seed. So for some reason today when I was thinking about it, I remembered this memory from being a kid growing up and watching the Carol Burnett show with my parents. I don't even know what night it was. And every Carol Burnett show ended with that song. And that song was right there for me. I could sing it.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So, and then I started looking at like other songs of farewells, like the farewell of the last Seinfeld episode and Office. You got Sarah McLachlan's I Will Remember You, and It's Closing Time. And
You sometimes give me a hard time because I'm an ends, and you think we Enses linger on the goodbyes, as opposed to the Irish goodbye where you just kind of slip out the back door.
Yeah, so I don't know if people even know about this, but there's something known as the Irish goodbye, which is you slip out without anybody knowing. And then there's, I think, the opposite is called a Jewish goodbye, which is you make sure to connect with everybody before you leave. And the ends version of that is the Mennonite goodbye, which is can go a long, long time. But so I give you a hard time. But anyway,
you give me a hard time about that. And yet I think you have, I'm going to say, have done a good job at times in this process when you've said, we should do this, as a way of, maybe people don't know this, but like we have a document that said, okay, what is important to us in these last 9 months?
Yeah.
And there have been times in that process where I was like, just forget it. Let's just either it's too hard or I don't know, it got in my head about, is this important? But I dare say you have had a Jewish goodbye.
Yeah.
You've wanted that.
I mean, the reality is that to do a Jewish or a Mennonite goodbye, it takes energy and work.
Yeah.
So I admit that I'm often not willing to do the work that is required to do that kind of goodbye, but
because it's painful, right?
Yeah,
There's things you commit to feeling when you decide to go that way.
Yeah.
But it's been good too.
Yeah.
So these are our final words. It's our final. Thanks for sticking along.
We will never have words again.
But we did kind of feel like there was a few things left unsaid that maybe we wanted to acknowledge today. I
feel like a good question would be, we've tried in this podcast to remember kind of our mindset or what we were thinking or where we were at different phases in Seeds. And right now I'm thinking, if we look back to the very beginning of Seeds, what were we thinking and hoping for? And now we find ourselves not at the end of Seeds, but the end of our time. Prizes, Darlene, that you have as we bring this era to a close, or like were your expectations met or exceeded, or I don't know, like what's the right question? Like what do we have to reflect on at this point?
Well, I think what feels significant to me, and maybe it falls in the surprise category, maybe not. You and I have worked together as a team in this Seeds project, and really
even before that.
Before that. So really my entire working life has been working with you. And we're going to continue working together actually after this. Mm-hmm. We just somehow can't get rid of each other. But this working together in Seeds I want to take a little bit of time to reflect on that, I guess. And there's so many times where I've been incredibly grateful to be working with you. I think that we have made a good team. I think that we have really encouraged one another I felt like you've encouraged me in what's strong for me, and I've tried to encourage you as well in things that you excel at. And I just think that together I look back and I'm proud of us. I can't imagine having done this work without you. And so that's thank you.
You're welcome.
To do something like this with your partner in life and your coworker and your parental partner. Mm-hmm. We've navigated lots of different roles together, and sometimes it has been tough. We've had tough times. Our home has often been, a place where many things are happening at once. So it's not like we haven't ever had a life where we could leave our work at work. We can be coming up with agendas as we're making coffee in the morning, or we can be working out a situation in the bedroom, and that has honestly had its ups and downs in terms of boundaries and how that's gone for us. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so I just feel incredible amount of gratitude for you, for you being my partner. And I also, I would say that our kids, we raised our children as we were leading Seeds, and our kids are a huge part of what went well too. That they now, of course, they're adults and are doing their own thing in the world, but I feel like they've also been hugely supportive of us. And when they were younger, I didn't want the kids to suffer because we worked for the church. I didn't want them to feel like they got cheated out of childhood because we gave everything to the church. I'm grateful to them for ways that they at Seeds were allowed to be themselves and to be their own kids, I think that's different than maybe what a lot of pastors' kids years ago, kind of the extra pressures that were put on them. And I still think they probably felt some pressure, but I just feel like I'm in a looking back phase now, obviously. And I have a lot of gratitude for the village of Seeds that raised our kids alongside us and provided a lot of safety for them. And I also feel like our kids have championed us along the way too, especially as they got older. They've cheered us on, and they supported us when we said we were going to move on and let go of this role. And so, yeah, just feel like I wanted to say thanks to them.
Yeah, I think I would resonate with everything you said. I think part of like coming back to being partnered with you in this work and in our life, I feel like that our relationship and our working together was a bit of a microcosm about how we wanted to be church at Seeds. And so we were doing life together as a couple, and we were, giving our energy to the leadership of Seeds. And we also were doing life with the people that were connected to Seeds, and also collaborating on the work that we were doing as a church. And, I think that there was a lot of, rich sort of experience because we did the Seeds church the way we did it. And yeah, it's been complicated at times, and maybe this transition has been more complicated because of the way we chose to operate, but don't have regrets about it either. I think too, maybe just to pick up off on this, I feel like one of the things that I've been reflecting on is, this is really too bad, but when we talk about the history of the Seeds Church, like what does get left out in the telling of the story is everyone's individual story of journeying in life and journeying with their relationship with God. And everybody's aware that life is complicated and there are twists and turns that can't be anticipated. And there are things like sickness and addiction, mental health struggles, all kinds of things that people deal with. And part of our being situated in the role of leaders at Seeds as pastors, we have been invited in to people's lives, both the really joyful parts of life and also the very difficult parts of life. When I've sometimes thought back about our experience at Seeds, I can kind of imagine telling the story in a book form, including all of the things that we got to be a part of in relationship to people's lives. And then also realize right away that one could never write that book because those experiences are not our story. They're people's stories, even though we were a part of it. And so I just think it's important to recognize just what a privilege it was for us to be invited into people's stories. And everybody knows, who you are, and you know which stories we're talking about. And that made a rich life for us in our time at Seeds, and we will carry those things with us in a way that that it gives a lot of meaning to our life, being a part of that kind of stuff. If you have any reflections on that. Yeah,
no, you said it well. Like the most vulnerable places are in people's lives. We sometimes got to be there. Mm-hmm. And hopefully held that with a lot of care. Mm-hmm.
We have carried a huge vault, as we would refer to it. Like we put that in the vault.
Yeah.
And that vault still exists, and we keep that secure.
Yeah, and so it goes without saying then that our leaving also is that makes the leaving hard as well, because the role gave us the ability to attend to things under that banner, and so I think we hold a lot of people in our community with a lot of love. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
you were just reflecting yesterday at our Sunday service. where we typically have communion together, and we do that by making a circle around the table. And you were just receiving communion, you weren't serving, and you just you mentioned how you looked around the circle, and that really impacted you, seeing all the people and the love that you felt for everybody. And I would echo that as I went around the room and served the body and the blood of Christ to each person that I did, just naming them by name and, holding those connections and relationships. Like, they're quite important to us. Any surprises? There's so many surprises in our time, but anything that stands out, what the biggest surprise was? I'm surprised that we lasted as long as we did, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I would have hoped that we would have been here for a long time, but it kind of isn't the norm. So it's not the norm to do a work in one place for a long time and not experience a significant burnout or, those kinds of things. And so I'm a bit surprised that we were fortunate enough to survive our 26 plus years of leadership.
Are we allowed to say, I was going to ask you, what are you most looking forward to?
Oh, yeah. What I'm looking most forward to is handing over the responsibility for the health of this community. Handing that off. I'm not sure who's going to all take it, but...
Well, right now, our lead team is taking it already.
Yeah.
But yeah, fully handing it over
to walk,
and
put it down and to walk away from it is, I'm looking forward to that, although I think it'll be one of the more precarious things that we have to do, because we are so patterned to think about and take that responsibility on our shoulders. So to let it go is going to be a new responsibility for us.
But you're looking forward to not having to hold it anymore, because you recognize that holding it has been, it's a thing.
Yeah. It takes energy. It takes...
This is less huge, but I'm really looking forward to not having to do Tuesday morning meetings with you.
You might have to in the new job.
So
we won't make it Tuesday morning. So
Tuesday mornings were often rough.
Why were they rough, Darlene?
Because
you're a hard person to work with?
Because Monday would be our day off, and then inevitably Tuesday morning, pressure would just mount of all the things that was on the plate for that coming week. And Tuesday morning we would have a meeting to basically talk about the week ahead. And often we shouldn't give away. Sometimes it was rough just because we were both feeling pressure. And this is where, when you're in a marriage relationship with the person that you work with, it's also sometimes we were snappy, and sometimes we're how we have to start this again, or we'd have to process some disagreement, some marital disagreement first before we could get into the work part of our life.
It's well known that humans as a species, when under stress, may not be living their best selves. And to not be your best self in relationship can mean conflict and hurt feelings and offense. And we got crap to get done because there's a lot of things to do this week, and we don't have time to be in conflict with our work partner. And Yeah,
and at some point, I think we just realized that Tuesday morning meetings were sometimes a lot.
We live to tell about it, though, Darlene.
Today's Monday. Tomorrow's our last Tuesday morning meeting.
Let's not have a meeting tomorrow. What are they going to do? Fire us if we don't have a meeting tomorrow? All right. Well, Seeds Church, we're bringing this podcast at least to a conclusion. I think we want to leave this podcast with a blessing to the Seeds community going forward. I think I should speak for myself. I am quite encouraged and excited about where the Seeds Church is going to go and what it's going to be and what it's going to look like in the next phase of its life, and not concerned that I'm not going to have the same part in it that I did for the last 26 years. So I want to encourage everybody, I think, to just embrace that future as a community, and making the big decisions you'll make going forward, new leadership and whatever that's all going to entail. So I bless you on that journey. I trust that it's going to be a good journey.
I believe and have believed since Seeds' inception that we have a unique role in the community, and that is not to discount other communities' roles, but to embrace the role that we have in our community. And it has been, as I've often said, one of the greatest joys of my life to help to be a part of a team that stewards this faith community through a lot of shifting times and seasons, and I trust that it will continue to do so under the umbrella of God's great love and grace. Peace be with you all.
I was thinking maybe we should leave this podcast not with the Carol Burnett goodbye song, but maybe with like one of our benediction songs that we sing. And I think the one that came to mind was Go in Peace. As we go in peace. And so we'll add this to the end instead of the normal music trailer. Go in peace, Seeds Church.
As we go in peace. By spreading love, the fights will cease. We will act on what we've learned. As we go in peace. By spreading love, the fights will cease. We will act on what we've learned. What can we do to heal the broken? What can we do to feed the hungry? Follow the path that Jesus showed us, the Prince of Peace. Prince of Peace, we have all the tools we need. Through us, God will plant the seed. We will love our enemies. We are all the tools we need. Through us, God will plant the seed. We will love our enemies. What can we do to heal the broken? What can we do to feed the hungry? Follow the path that Jesus showed us, the Prince of Peace.